The planet Nerea was known for peace. Its skies were soft purple, its rivers glowed at night, and its people, the Eliari, had never fought a war in thousands of years. They believed in science, balance, and quiet strength. But peace is fragile. One evening, without warning, fire fell from the sky. Unknown ships broke through the clouds, explosions lit up the horizon, screams echoed across the fields. War had come. Among the first to respond was a human, a soldier named Tyron Maddox, assigned as a peacekeeper from Earth. He had trained for war but hoped to never see it again. Now, as the ground shook and towers fell, Tyron was running toward danger. He wasn't saving cities. He was saving one life. In the middle of the chaos, a transport ship had been hit. It crashed near the Capitol Garden Dome. Inside, one Eliari girl, young, noble, and wounded, was trapped under broken steel and fire. Her name was Selah. Her leg was pinned, her breathing shallow. The escape pod had failed. Guards were dead. She had never seen a human up close before. And now, through smoke and flame, he appeared. Tyron kicked through the wreckage, lifted the burning panel, pulled her into his arms. Selah could hardly speak. "You're human?" Tyron grinned. "Lucky for you, yeah." He carried her through the fire. Bullets zipped past. Smoke burned his eyes. He took 3 shots to his armor, 1 to his shoulder, but he never let her go. When they reached the safety wall, he collapsed. "Stay low," he whispered. "You'll live." Then his vision turned. Black Tyron woke in a prison cell, metal walls. Cold floor, no window. His wound was treated, but he was chained. He tried to speak, but a voice answered first. "You broke the barrier line. You touched the royal daughter. You interfered without permission." An Eliari guard stood outside the cell, stone-faced. Tyron blinked. "I saved her." "You crossed our sacred line," the guard said, "and for that, you will answer." In another chamber, Selah stood with her elders. "He saved you," one elder said, "but he also touched you, broke our ancient law. What would happen if all humans did the same?" "He was protecting me," she shouted, "not harming me." "The law does not care for reasons." Selah's eyes filled with fire. "Then maybe the law is wrong." Later that night, she visited the holding floor in secret, wore a guard's cloak, bypassed the cameras. She stopped outside Tyron's cell. He looked up slowly. "Selah, you remember me?" "Hard to forget," he said, smiling weakly. "You still limping?" She nodded. "Because of you, I'm alive." He shook his head. "Doesn't feel like much of a reward." "I came to say thank you," she said softly, "and to warn you, they plan to send you off-world for trial." Tyron clenched his fists. "For saving a life?" "For touching a royal," she said, "even to protect her." Selah looked down the hallway. No guards yet. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a key crystal. "I'm breaking the rule," she said. "I'm not supposed to be here." Tyron sat up straighter. "What are you saying?" "I owe you my life, and if that means breaking the old codes, then let them break." She stepped closer. "I'm getting you out." The prison halls were silent. Selah moved like a shadow through the corridor, her guard's cloak hiding her glowing skin. The key crystal in her hand pulsed with faint green light. Her heart pounded louder than her footsteps. She had never broken a rule in her life. Tonight she was about to break them all. Inside the cold cell, Tyron sat on the floor with his back against the wall. His wounds ached, but he didn't care. He had saved her. He'd do it again. But still, being treated like a criminal hurt more than the bullet wound. Suddenly, the lock on his cell made a soft click. The door hissed open. He looked up, confused. And there she was. Selah. No guards, no weapons. Just her and a decision. He stood slowly. "You actually came back." "I told you I would," she said. "And I don't break promises." "You know what they'll do if they catch you helping me, right?" "They already tried to silence me," she said. "Now I choose my own path." Tyron stepped closer. "Are you sure about this?" Sayla looked him in the eyes. "You saved my life. This is me returning the favor." She handed him a folded cloak. "Put this on. You'll look like a transport tech." Tyron smiled. "You think this will hide me?" "No, but it might buy us a few minutes." They slipped through the hallway like ghosts. Sayla knew the patrol routes. She had memorized them when she was a child, sneaking into the science halls at night. But now, every turn felt heavier. One wrong move, and they'd both be locked away. Or, worse, they reached the service bay where smaller ships docked for refueling. A single craft sat in the far corner, unlocked, unguarded. "Fast enough to leave orbit?" Tyron asked. "Fast enough to vanish," Sayla said. She pulled up a screen and began entering launch codes. Her hands shook, but her voice stayed calm. Just as the engines began to warm, a voice called out behind them. "Sayla?" They turned. Male Eliari guard stood at the entrance, eyes wide. "Step away from the console," he ordered. Sayla raised her hand. "Please don't." But Tyron moved first. In a blink, he crossed the floor and tackled the guard. The two crashed to the ground. The guard swung wildly, but Tyron blocked the strike and knocked him out cold. He turned to Sayla, breathing hard. "Go, now." The ship's hatch closed just as alarms started to wail. They took off fast, blasting through the docking tunnel and into the star-filled sky. Sayla sat in the pilot seat, gripping the controls. Tyron dropped into the co-pilot chair, sweat on his brow. "We just made enemies," he said. "We made a choice," she corrected. Tyron looked at her. "You gave up everything. For me." Sayla's voice was quiet but firm. "No, I gave it up. For something worth saving." As the stars stretched before them, one thing was certain. There was no turning back. And now, they were both fugitives. The stars outside the ship stretched like silver streaks as Sayla's small craft jumped to faster-than-light speed. The hum of the engine was steady, but inside the cockpit, tension crackled in the air. Tyron sat in silence beside her, staring at the blackness ahead. He had flown many ships, but this was different. He wasn't running from danger. He was the danger now. Sayla's hands gripped the controls tightly. She had never stolen a ship before, never broken orbit without permission, never gone against her own kind. But none of that mattered now. She looked over at Tyron. His shoulder was still wrapped, but his strength was returning fast. His jaw was bruised, his eyes alert. "I sent a false trail to the council," she said quietly. "It will lead them toward the moons of Yaxel." Tyron raised an eyebrow. "Smart. But not for long," she added. "They'll know it was me. They'll guess where we're really going." "Then we stay one step ahead," he said. Back on Terelia, in the Capital Council chamber, alarms echoed. A hologram of Sayla's ship blinked red across the high display wall. "She freed the human," one elder growled. "She betrayed her own name." Another nodded. "Send the pursuit ships. Authorize live capture. Both targets." A third paused. "And if they resist? Then eliminate the human." Meanwhile, far away, Sayla and Tyron landed on a barren mining station orbiting an abandoned moon. The place was old, cold, and quiet. Once a fuel hub, now nothing more than dust and metal. "We'll hide here," Sayla said. "For now." Tyron looked around. "You always this good at breaking rules?" She smiled slightly. "No, but I'm getting better." As night passed on the station, Tyron tried to rest, but he kept listening. For ships. For footsteps. For betrayal. But all he heard was silence, and the soft sound of Sayla breathing beside him, wrapped in an old blanket on the other side of the room. At dawn, the peace ended. A soft beep echoed from Sayla's console. She rushed to it. "They found our trail," she whispered. "A scout drone was here. It sent our location." Tyron was already moving. "We leave now." But Sayla didn't move. "They'll chase us forever," she said. "As long as you're with me, you're hunted." "I've been hunted before," Tyron replied, "but never for something that mattered." She turned slowly. You think I matter? He stepped closer. You were worth the fire. You're still worth the risk. Their eyes locked, but the moment shattered as a red light flashed on the panel. Enemy ships inbound. Sayla pulled the ship out of the docking bay. Tyron manned the weapon system. They burst into space just as two Eliari patrol ships appeared behind them. Lasers flashed. Alarms screamed. Sayla swerved, barely dodging a shot. Tyron fired back, clipping one of the patrol ships. They're not playing, he said. They think I've been brainwashed, Sayla replied. That you poisoned my mind. He gave a dry laugh. You're the one flying. If anything, you're corrupting me. The chase continued through an asteroid field. One ship crashed, the other kept coming. Then, an opening. Sayla pushed the engines hard and vanished into the dust clouds of Sector 3. The last patrol ship lost their signal for now. They were free again. They landed on a hidden platform inside a crater. Safe for now. Tyron slumped back in his seat. We can't keep doing this forever, he said. No, Sayla agreed. But we just need one place, one chance, to speak the truth. And who will listen? She looked up. I know someone. The crater was quiet. Dust floated in the thin air. A low wind howled against the metal hull of Sayla's stolen ship, but inside the hidden platform beneath the rock, everything was still. Tyron sat near the ship's side panel, checking the power cells. Shields are holding, he said. Barely. Sayla didn't answer. She was staring at a small holographic disc in her hand. Tyron walked over. You okay? She nodded slowly. I'm contacting someone I haven't seen in years. She's not counsel, but she has a voice. He raised an eyebrow. A friend? Sayla hesitated. My sister. Back in the capital, the council's fury had grown. The story was spreading. A royal girl had fled with a human. Some said she had been kidnapped. Others believed she was in love. The council didn't care about the story. They cared about the shame. A few hours later, a sleek ship entered the edge of the crater. Sayla stood beside Tyron as it landed, engines humming low. The hatch opened, and out stepped a tall Eliari woman wrapped in silver robes, her face calm but sharp. Sayla, she said, you've caused quite a storm. Sayla stepped forward. Hello, Talia. Tyron watched the two sisters, but nothing alike. Talia looked royal, untouched, but her eyes were clever, calculating. Is this the human? Talia asked, her eyes moving to Tyron. He nodded. Tyron Maddox, soldier, prisoner, now fugitive, I guess. Talia smirked. You have courage. And bad timing, he replied. Inside the visitor ship, they talked for hours. Sayla explained everything, how Tyron saved her life, how the council reacted, how she ran. Talia listened without interrupting. Finally, she said, you're not wrong, but you're not safe either. Sayla leaned in. Then help us. Talia looked at Tyron. Why did you do it? Saving her? Risking your life? Tyron's voice was steady. Because she didn't deserve to die. That's it. No reward? Talia asked. No plan. Talia stood. Then maybe there's still hope for both of you. Talia let them stay in her hidden estate, an off-grid research center floating above the clouds of Elix Prime. It wasn't official. It wasn't registered, but it was safe. For a while. That night, Tyron stood on the balcony looking out at the floating world. The wind was soft. The stars above felt closer. Sayla stepped beside him. Thank you, she said. For what? For not running, even when I gave you every reason to. He smiled. You think I'd leave now? Not a chance. She looked at him, her voice quiet. Do you ever wish you'd let me die back then, in the fire? He turned to her sharply. Never, not for a second. She took a breath. Then I need to be honest. He frowned. About what? They won't stop. Even if we hide. Even if we change names. My blood makes me dangerous to them. Tyron stepped closer. Then let's stop hiding. But in the shadows a signal had been traced. Someone had leaked the location. Ships were coming. And this time, they wouldn't ask questions. For the first time in days, there was peace. Floating high above Elix Prime in Talia's hidden sanctuary, Tyron and Sayla were safe. For now. No alarms, no patrols, no council drones scanning the skies. Just silence. Just stars. Tyron walked slowly through the transparent hallway that wrapped around the edge of the floating lab. The sky outside was pink and gold, filled with glowing clouds and distant planets. He had never seen anything like it. Behind him, Sayla followed, quietly watching him. "You've seen 100 battlefields," she said. "But you still stop, to stare at the sky." Tyron smiled. "I've seen what war does to planets. I like to remember they can be beautiful too." She stood beside him. "I used to dream of leaving this world," she said. "Now I'm hiding on it." "You're not hiding," he replied. "You're standing up for what's right." She looked at him. "Then why does it feel so heavy?" They sat later in the observation room, just the two of them. A tray of alien fruit rested between them. Tyron picked up a bright blue one and sniffed it. "Safe to eat?" he asked. "Not really." She smirked. He took a bite anyway. "Tastes like a grape and an onion had a baby." Sayla laughed. A real laugh. The kind she hadn't felt since the war started. It made Tyron's heart skip. As the stars shifted outside, the conversation turned quiet. Sayla looked down at her hands. "Do you miss Earth?" He nodded. "Sometimes. The food, the noise, the smell of rain on real soil." She paused. "Will you go back?" He looked at her, then shook his head. "Not without you." Sayla's eyes widened. "You'd give up your home?" "I already did," he said. "The second I carried you out of that fire." There was silence between them. Not awkward, just full. Full of things they hadn't said yet, full of feelings they were still learning to understand. She reached out slowly, taking his hand. "I don't know what this is," she whispered. "But I know I trust you more than anyone I've ever known." He gently squeezed her hand. "We don't need to name it." Her voice was soft. "But I want to keep it." They sat like that for a long time, hands joined, heads leaning close. Not because of fear, not because of survival, but because something new was growing. Something real. Meanwhile, in the capital city, the council sat in silence. A new message had arrived. A bounty transmission, unsigned, untraceable. But it contained the exact coordinates of Talia's lab. "They are together," the message read. But not for long. Back on the floating sanctuary, Talia watched the skies from her command console. Her eyes narrowed as her sensor lights flickered red. Sayla and Tyron didn't know it yet, but the council's ships had already begun to move. The peaceful silence didn't last. Talia stood in the control room, her silver robe trailing behind her. Her fingers tapped quickly across the glowing panel. Warning lights flashed red. A message appeared in the ancient Eliari script. "Council fleet en route, ETA 9 hours. She turned slowly toward the doorway. "Sayla, Tyron, we have a problem." Down the corridor, Sayla and Tyron were still seated near the observation window, their hands quietly resting together. But as soon as Talia's voice echoed, they stood at once. "They're coming?" Sayla asked. Talia nodded. 5 ships. No warnings. Full combat mode. Tyron's jaw clenched. "They're not coming to talk." "No," Talia said. "They're coming to take you both." Later, as they sat around the command table, Talia laid out their choices. "You can run again," she said, "but it's only delaying the end." Sayla looked down. "They won't stop unless I return." Tyron leaned forward. "Return You mean surrender? She didn't answer. Talia's voice was sharp. They want to erase this. Everything you've done. Saving him, trusting him, fleeing with him. To them, this is betrayal of blood. Tyron stood. Then I'll go. Alone. Sayla looked up, eyes wide. What? They want me, he said. Let me walk out there. Maybe it ends it. No, Sayla said, her voice shaking. They'll kill you on sight. Tyron shrugged. Better me than you. Sayla stepped closer and grabbed his arm. You think I risked everything just to let them take you now? He met her eyes. Then what do we do? The room was silent for a moment, then Talia spoke. There is one way. They both turned. Talia continued. The council still honors ancient law. If Sayla returns willingly and speaks before the high seat, she can invoke Catriel's claim. It's an old rule, older than the council itself. What does it mean? Tyron asked. It means, Talia said slowly, she stands before them and declares the human as her bonded. Sayla blinked. That law hasn't been used in generations. Tyron frowned. Bonded? Like marriage? Not exactly, Talia said. It means you've chosen him, as a life debt, as protection, as mine, Sayla whispered, finishing the sentence. Tyron looked at her. Would that stop them? Talia nodded. They'd be forced to hear your case. They couldn't harm him until judgment, but they'd never let us walk out again, Tyron said. Sayla turned to him. Then we walk in together. As the council ships entered the edge of the atmosphere, Sayla prepared herself. She wore her official house crest for the first time, in weeks. Her cloak was clean, her hair tied back. Tyron stepped beside her, armored, calm, but silent. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. She looked at him. I already did. The council shuttle landed with a hiss of steam. Doors opened. 10 guards in silver armor stepped out. The lead one raised a scanner. By order of the Elyari High Council, you are... Sayla raised her voice clearly and firmly. I invoke Catriel's claim. This human is under my protection. The guards froze. Murmurs passed through the group. One slowly activated his comlink. They'll take you, Tyron whispered. She looked at him with steady eyes. Let them try. The High Council chamber was filled with silence. Rows of glowing seats circled around the center platform. Every elder was present. Every eye was locked on Sayla. She stood tall in the circle's center, her royal crest glowing faintly on her chest. By her side, Tyron stood calm, but ready, his face unreadable, his body straight, yet his eyes scanning everything. The council speaker, an old Elyari with glowing silver veins, rose slowly. Princess Sayla of House Virine, you have returned, under an ancient law. Do you understand the risk? Sayla nodded. I do. You invoked Catriel's claim. Speak it clearly now before all. Sayla looked around the chamber at the same people who had once celebrated her birth, now judging her like a traitor. Then she turned to Tyron. I, Sayla of House Virine, declare this human, Tyron Maddox, as my protector, my debt, and my chosen. By the law of Catriel, he stands under my shield. Gasps echoed in the chamber. The speaker stepped forward. This is no small act, child. You offer your honor, your name, your future, for a man not of your kind. I offer it, she said firmly, because he saved me when no one else did. One elder shouted, he is an outsider, a killer, a species without order. Tyron stepped forward calmly. I didn't come to your world to cause chaos, he said. But when I saw Sayla trapped, bleeding, I didn't ask what species she was. I just helped, another elder sneered. And how many more would you help like that? Tyron smiled faintly. As many as I need to. Talia, watching from the gallery, hid her smile. That was classic Tyron. Calm, confident, honest, dangerous only when it counted. Sayla took a deep breath. You judge him because he is human, but you forget he is also brave, loyal, and good. Then why did you flee? The speaker asked. Why not come to us from the start? Because I knew you wouldn't listen, she said. You would see a rule broken, not a life saved. A tense silence followed. Then a vote was called. Each council member pressed a glowing stone before them, red for rejection, blue for support. The lights began to flash. Red, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, blue. A tie. All eyes turned to the speaker. He looked down at Sayla. One law protects him. Another calls for his removal. Then he raised his hand. I choose mercy. A wave of shock passed through the crowd. Tyron Maddox, the speaker said, is under protection of House Vereen. He will not be punished. Sayla exhaled. Tyron closed his eyes for a second, then opened them slowly. But the speaker wasn't finished. However, should you, Princess Sayla, continue to walk beside him, you are no longer of the royal line. You are stripped of rank, land, and name. The chamber grew silent again. Sayla blinked. Then she nodded once. I accept. Tyron turned to her, voice low. You don't have to give all that up. She smiled. I already chose what matters. And in that moment, for the first time in Eliari history, a royal gave up her world for a human. The crowd had left. The chamber was empty. But Sayla and Tyron's decision still echoed in the air like a silent storm. She had given up everything. Her name, her title, her future, and he had stood beside her knowing it made him a target. But while they believed it was over, it was only beginning. In the deep chambers beneath the council hall, 3 elders stood in a dark room, away from the speaker's watchful eyes. This is madness, one hissed. She shamed our bloodline. Another leaned forward. And the human. If others follow her path, the wall between species will fall. The third narrowed his eyes. Then we must make them disappear. The next day, Talia met Sayla and Tyron at the edge of the transport bay. You're free to leave now, she said quietly. But be careful. Some doors were closed. Others may now open for enemies. Sayla looked around. They wouldn't dare touch us now. Not after the vote. Talia's face was hard. The vote saved your lives. It didn't change their hearts. Tyron placed a hand gently on Sayla's shoulder. Let's go. They stepped into a diplomatic shuttle, headed toward a neutral zone on the moon Veltron, a place where no government had power and no one asked questions, or so they thought. The shuttle passed through 2 worm gates, then began to slow near Veltron's orbit. Sayla leaned against the window, staring at the blue moon below. Tyron checked the systems. Suddenly the lights flickered. What was that? Sayla asked. Before he could answer, red alarms lit up the cockpit. Tyron cursed under his breath. They disabled the engine. The shuttle dropped sharply. Sayla clutched the side rail. We're falling? No. We're being pulled. Outside, a hidden Eliari military vessel uncloaked. Its black design was sleek and silent, built for one thing only: elimination. Inside that ship, the same elder who had voted against mercy smiled darkly. Let her see her mistake, in her final moments. Tyron tried to reroute power, fingers flying across the controls. Sayla jumped into the second chair. Give me shield control. A blast rocked the side of the ship. Tyron gritted his teeth. They're not here to capture us. They're here to end this. Sayla's face was pale. The council broke their own law. Tyron looked at her. They don't care about law. They care about silence. As the enemy ship charged a final cannon blast, Sayla turned to Tyron. If we die, I want you to know. But he cut her off, eyes locked on hers. We're not dying today. And then, boom! A second blast came, not from the enemy, but from behind them. Another ship had arrived. A rogue vessel zoomed into the fight. Small, fast, and aggressive. It blasted the enemy's engines and shield corps with precision strikes. Inside the rogue ship, Talia, Her eyes burned with fury. "No one touches my sister." Tyron pulled the shuttle away as Talia's ship forced the attackers into retreat. They docked with her mid-flight. Inside the corridor, Sayla ran into her sister's arms. "You followed us?" "I monitored your shuttle. I had a feeling." Tyron wiped sweat from his brow. "Good feeling." Talia looked at them both. "This was no accident. The council gave a fake blessing, then tried to erase you quietly." Sayla's voice turned cold. "Then let's stop running." The rogue ship floated in silence above the gray moon of Veltran. Inside, Tyron stared at the control panel, jaw tight, fists clenched. His reflection showed a man pushed to the edge, not by fear, but by injustice. He wasn't running anymore. Sayla stepped beside him, calm but serious. "We can disappear again? Hide on some neutral world?" Tyron shook his head slowly. "No. That's what they expect." Talia folded her arms from across the room. "What do you want to do?" "I want to speak," Tyron said. "To every world, every system. I want them to hear the truth." "You want a broadcast?" Sayla asked, surprised. "Yes," Tyron said. "A full transmission, unedited, raw. Let them see what the Eliari Council tried to cover up. What they did. What they tried to do to you." Talia hesitated. "If you go public, you can't go back to being a soldier, or a refugee, or even a ghost." "I wasn't any of those things the moment I pulled her out of that fire," he said. Sayla looked into his eyes. "You really want to do this?" "I already chose," he said. "Now it's time the galaxy does too." Talia led them to her ship's deep core communications deck, a high-powered broadcast system meant for emergencies. But tonight, it would deliver something far more powerful. The truth. The lights dimmed. The red record light blinked on. Tyron stood in front of the camera. He took a breath, then began. "My name is Tyron Maddox. I am human, and I was imprisoned for saving a life." He explained what happened, how he found Sayla burning inside that wreckage, how he carried her to safety, how he was arrested instead of thanked, how the council covered it up, tried to kill him, and how one Eliari woman gave up everything to protect him. She didn't care what species I was. She saw a soul worth saving, and I saw the same in her. Behind him, Sayla stepped into frame. "I am Sayla of House Vereen," she said firmly. "I stand with Tyron Maddox, not because he is human, but because he is good, and your laws should never punish goodness." The signal went out. To neutral zones, to border colonies, to rebels, to royals, to anyone who would listen. The galaxy held its breath. On council worlds, screens flickered. In mining camps, fighters gathered. On Earth itself, people leaned in. The story was out, and it couldn't be erased. Back on the ship, the trio watched the view counter rise. Talia shook her head. "They'll respond, and not kindly." Tyron nodded. "Let them come. This time, I'll be ready." Sayla took his hand. "We'll both be." Far away, in the shadow of the council's private fortress, emergency meetings were already underway. One elder slammed his fist on the table. "He exposed us, humiliated us." Another whispered, "The people are starting to ask questions." A third said coldly, "Then it's time we answer with power." Outside, fleet ships began to move again. But now, it wasn't just Sayla and Tyron they were hunting. It was an idea, and ideas are hard to kill. The stars above Veltran glowed cold and distant, but war was coming. Fleet signals lit up across multiple systems. Dozens of council ships were on the move, ready to silence the human and the Eliari who defied them. Inside Talia's ship, the crew prepared for what could be their last stand. Tyron adjusted his armor. Not military gear, he wasn't a soldier anymore. This armor was light, homemade, patched with alien tech and worn with pride. Sayla joined him, dressed not in robes, but in tactical Ilyari flight armor. Sleek, fast, powerful. You ready? She asked softly. He looked at her. I've been ready since the day I saved you. She smiled faintly. Then let's give them something to remember. Talia's voice crackled over the ship's comms. Enemy fleet closing in. We've got 5 minutes. Tyron turned to Sayla. Time to show them what a human and an alien girl can do. As the first wave of ships approached, Tyron activated the signal beacon. The same broadcast system from before, this time tuned for every open channel across the sector. A live message echoed through the stars. This is Tyron Maddox. I will not run. I will not hide. I saved a life. I stood for what's right. And now we stand together. Sayla stepped into view. I gave up everything to protect him. Not out of fear, but love. And if that's a crime, then let history judge me guilty. The response came faster than anyone expected. Ships across, the fringe worlds, traders, miners, exiles, and even a few military defectors responded. One by one, they warped in, not to fight for a flag, but for a choice to believe in honor, in loyalty, in the bond between species. The Council fleet arrived like a hammer. The rogue allies rose like a shield. Lasers burned across space. Explosions thundered between stars. Tyron flew side by side, with Sayla in a joint fighter, dodging fire, targeting Council engines, protecting the small rebel crafts. Talia led the command from orbit, directing waves of resistance like a veteran general. In the chaos, one Council cruiser broke formation and charged Tyron's fighter head-on. Brace, Sayla shouted, but before the ship could crash into them, a rebel freighter sacrificed itself, slamming into the cruiser, sending both into a ball of fire. Tyron clenched his fists. No more good people dying for the truth. On the battlefield, something shifted. More Council ships started pulling back. Some pilots refused to fire. One after another, ships dropped their weapons. Not because of orders, but because of what Sayla and Tyron had shown them. That unity is stronger than fear, the Battle ended, the sky cleared. And for the first time in generations, a human and an Eliari stood as equals in the eyes of the stars. Weeks later, on a peaceful world near the edge of the galaxy, a new treaty was signed. Sayla and Tyron sat together in the front row, not as, fugitives, but as founders. He looked at her, eyes soft. What now? She smiled. Now, we rebuild. Together. And in that moment, the galaxy took its first step toward peace. Not because of armies or weapons, but because two people, a human and an alien, refused to stop believing in each other.